My favorite dex entry is Tyantrum's, which says, thanks to its gargantuan jaws, which could shred thick metal plates as if they were paper, it was invincible in the ancient world it once inhabited. Invincible. Yet this Pokemon isn't considered a legendary Pokemon, and that is a problem. Out of the 898 ordinary Pokemon that exist, I think 32 of them have potential to be legendary. And today, I'm going to see if they have what it takes. Here's my criteria for how Pokemon can be promoted to the legendary status. First, it needs to have a world-altering feat, some kind of legendary lore that makes this Pokemon feared, worshipped, or remembered across the region. Second, it needs to have some kind of special treatment in the games, whether that's a signature move, ability, unique music, story role, or any kind of significance in the games whatsoever. And lastly, it needs to be somewhat rare in the wild, at least for the open world games on the Switch. If Pokemon meets all three of these criteria, it will be promoted into a legendary Pokemon. And this video is sponsored by Alestro's Awaken. Yeah, the card game that Pokemon creator A-Drive made is now becoming a real-life video game. And this game features 2.5D pixel art and monster-catching RPG mechanics. And if you love Pokemon, you'll definitely want to support the Kickstarter link down below. And on top of that, Shady Penguin has joined the Alestro's team as the RPG's creative director too. So now you have A-Drive and Shady Penguin behind this epic game. Alestro Awakens combines the best elements of Pokemon, The Legend of Zelda, and even Octopath Traveler, where you go on an epic adventure where you bond with elemental spirits, challenge divine beings, and explore Titan temples filled with puzzles and secrets. The Kickstarter runs from October 14th to November 7th, which means there's only 1 week left to back it. Supporters can gain alpha and beta access to the game, exclusive in-game unlocks, Kickstarter-only promo packs, and even appears an NPC or caster in the game too. Maybe I can convince A-Drive to make me an NPC in the game too. So be sure to check out the link down below and support the Kickstarter for Alestro's Awaken today, and support my two longtime friends, A-Drive and Shady Penguin. I appreciate you guys sponsoring the video. And now, let's get back into it. Let's start with the Kanto region. Out of the 143 Pokemon that are not pseudo-legendary, legendary, or mythical, I think these 6 Pokemon have the most potential. Let's start with Charizard. According to his dex entries, Charizard spits fire hot enough to melt glaciers weighing 10,000 tons, and is known to unintentionally cause forest fires. When it comes to special treatments, I mean heck, it is Charizard that's gotten everything. A Mega Evolution, a Gigantamax form, it's even used by multiple champions in the games, so it is definitely relevant. So it comes down to its rarity, which I would say is pretty questionable. On one hand, it is a starter Pokemon and not found in the wild that often, but on the other, you literally find one flying on every route in Let's Go games, right alongside the legendary birds and Dragonite. And if you watched my other video, I claim legendary birds not be legendary for this very reason. So to stay consistent, I don't think Charizard fits the bill. So, not legendary. Ninetales. Ninetales has more legendary lore than most legendaries. It is said to inflict a 1,000-year curse on those who touch its tail. It is said to live for thousands of years. Legends even claim that each of its 9 tails have its own unique mystical power, and some even say 9 tails came into being when 9 wizards with sacred powers merged into one. So it definitely checks that box, no doubt about it. When it comes to special treatment, I would say its role in the misjudging games counts, since the whole plot of the entire story revolves around what happens with the 9 tails. And it actually led to more lore about Gengar in the games, where it stated that Gengar was once a human in Pokemon Moon. And as for its rarity, it can only be found as a special encounter in the Abundant Shrine in Unova, and a few routes in the Let's Go games, which I would say is rare enough for it to be our first promoted legendary Pokemon in this video. It is definitely legendary material. Arcanine. Arcanine is a strange case because the Pokedex classifies it as a legendary Pokemon, and it has multiple dex entries referring to it as a legendary too. But does it have any world-altering feats or legendary lore outside of being an admired Pokemon in China? Not really. It was given its own signature move in Generation 2 with extreme speed, and it is rare in the wild, just like Ninetales, only be found in a few routes in Let's Go games. But without any true world-altering feats, it just misses the mark of being a truly legendary Pokemon. So I'm sorry, Arcanine, but you are not the legendary Pokemon. Gyarados definitely captures the terrifying aura of a legendary Pokemon, because its dex entries state that it's capable of destroying entire cities and mountains in a rampage, which sounds pretty legendary to me. It was also given its own role as the Red Gyarados in the Generation 2 games, which I will count as special treatment. But I will say it is not rare at all, since it can be found in nearly every route that has water in it feels like. So, not legendary, just a very strong Pokemon. Ditto is also a strange case because it honestly has infinite potential. It can transform into a legendary Pokemon, and has been shown in the games to transform into humans as well. So technically it can pull off world-altering feats either as a powerful Pokemon or as someone like the President. So I will give it credit there. When it comes to special treatment, it is the only Pokemon outside of Mew who can use Transform. And in the Sun and Moon games, you can even find one transform as a human police officer. So I will count that as well. But when it comes to its rarity, it is not rare at all, since it can be found in several routes across multiple regions. So, not a legendary Pokemon, just an imposter. Aerodactyl. This Pokemon definitely has legendary lore to it, but from the past, since it was known as the king of the skies during ancient times, which sounds pretty world-altering to me. Its dex entries even state that its Mega Evolution completely restores its genes, implying that this was its original form back in those days, which I think is unique to it, and I would consider special treatment. And on top of that, it is very rare in the wild, since for the most part, you can only revive it from the old Amerts in order to get it. So, surprisingly, legendary, in its Mega form at least. Next up, we have the Johto region, and I think only 3 Pokemon here have potential. Starting with Xatu, it is said to have the power to see both the past and future at the same time, which could definitely be world-altering if it actually chose to act on these powers. But I don't think it's in its nature to, because it literally stays still out of fear of what it sees, according to his dex entries. So I'm not going to count this power as world-altering. And along with that, it doesn't have anything special in the games, and it's not that rare in the wild, as it can be found in several routes in the Hoenn remakes. So it's not a legendary. King. This Pokemon is so smart that it has the intelligence of award-winning scientists and is capable of solving the greatest mysteries of the world, which I would say is very world-altering if you can solve the mysteries of the world. And weirdly enough, it was given special treatment in the Scarlet and Violet games by getting its own signature move, Chilly Reception. So Game Freak might still think highly of it to give it a new move after like 20 years. So it comes down to its rarity, and it is very rare in the wild, only be found in rippling water in the Abundant Shrine and in Kalos Bay in an SOS battle. So to my surprise, and probably your surprise, Slowking fits the criteria of a legendary Pokemon, so it is legendary. For Unknown, it is said to be tied to the origin of writing, since there is a clear connection between ancient hieroglyphs and the Unknown themselves. But it is unknown which one came first, the writing or the Pokemon, which I would say is not only world-altering, but history-altering as well, since it altered the way humans communicate and record data. It was given special treatment by having 28 different forms and a whole area to themselves being the ruins of Alph. And along with that, I would say they are very rare, since they can only be found inside areas essentially dedicated to them. So I would say these little Pokemon are definitely legendary worthy. Alright, now let's dive into the Hoenn region, and I think only 3 Pokemon here have potential. Let's start with Gardevoir. Gardevoir is insane, because it not only has the ability to see the future, but it can also distort dimensions and even create small black holes in order to protect its trainer. And unlike Xatu, I think Gardevoir would actually act on these impulses to impact the world, so I'm going to count it. When it comes to special treatment, it was given a Mega Evolution and acted as the ace of a champion, which I will count. And for its rarity, I would say it is very rare, not being found anywhere in the wild before the Sword and Shield games, so it should be legendary. Slaking is an interesting case because it literally has the same base stat total as Groudon and Kyogre, with the downside of the Truon ability, which I would count as special treatment. But even though it is very powerful, it is also known as the world's laziest Pokemon, so I don't think it's going to be pulling off any world-altering feats, even if it could. And even though it's a very rare Pokemon, I don't think it should be a legendary, just a very strong Pokemon. Absol could be seen as a feared Pokemon because every time it appears before people, a natural disaster follows, like an earthquake, tidal wave, or even an avalanche. So I would say it checks that box, even though it's not directly responsible for those disasters. It is just feared. For special treatment, it was given a Mega Evolution, so I will count that, but it isn't that rare in the wild, well, at least in the Johto region at least, because it can be found in nearly every cave there for some reason. So I guess a lot of disasters are happening over there, so for that reason, it is not legendary deserving, but just barely. Now let's do the Sinnoh region, and I think 6 Pokemon here have potential. Starting with our second starter Pokemon in this video, Torterra. This Pokemon has a lot of potential in my opinion. It is said that during ancient times, a gigantic Torterra walked the earth, and that it was so massive, it was known as the moving forest, with small Pokemon spending their entire lives on its back. I would say that is truly remarkable, and the very lore that legendary Pokemon have. So yes, that is definitely going to be counted. For special treatment, as a starter Pokemon, that is enough in itself, along with having access to moves like Frenzy Plants and the Overgrow ability, which only starter Pokemon can get. So it comes down to its rarity, and unlike Charizard, I say it passes, since it can only be found in one area in all of the games, the Crimson Mirelands in Hisui, which makes it our first starter Pokemon to be promoted to the legendary status. Let's go. Empoleon is another starter Pokemon I think has potential as well, since its destiny say it was revered by people of Hisui and called the Master of the Waves. But I think this is another Arcanine situation, where it's admired by a region of people, but doesn't actually have any world-altering lore. So unfortunately for the Empoleon fans, I'm not going to count this one, even though it does check the other 2 boxes for the criteria, by being a starter Pokemon with access to Hydro Cannon and Torrent, as well as being rare in the wild. So just barely barely not a legendary. Bronzong is another interesting one because it is known to summon rain from another dimension by opening up portals to another world. Ancient people even worship Bronzong, believing it brought plentiful harvests. So I would say that's enough to check the first box of the legendary world-altering lore. When it comes to its special treatment though, it is tricky because it is a fairly popular Pokemon for the Elite Four members, since Will, Lucian, Kalen, and even Poppy use it. But is that enough to check the box? I don't think so, even though it is rare in the wild. So just barely, again, not a legendary Pokemon too. Spiritomb. This Pokemon is often brought up in debates for deserving legendary status, but I don't really think so after reading its lore. It is true that the 108 evil spirits that make up its body were known for mischief and misdeeds, but there's also a dex entry that states that a single traveler was able to bind them all to an odd keystone, which doesn't sound very world-altering to me if one random Joe just walked up and pulled that off. So I'm not going to count that. Although it is supposed to be a one-of-a-kind Pokemon, it does have its own side missions in the games, but under my criteria, it needs to beat all three. So still not a legendary. Lucario is synonymous with the Aura Guardians in the Pokemon world, since it has a unique ability to sense aura, which could maybe be considered world-altering, but I'm not sure because Aura Guardians are basically just trainers with extra powers, like psychics, wizards, and even vampires, which all do exist in the Pokemon world. It was given a Mega Evolution, which I would count as special treatment, and it does seem pretty rare in the games, so you can only get one from Karina in X and Y, and in Pony Grove in the Alola. But without that world-altering feat, I think it just falls short of being a legendary Pokemon too, unfortunately. Rotom is another Pokemon that is heavily debated for legendary status, because in the Sinnoh games, it has its own area, and even shares music with a legendary Pokemon, which confused a lot of people, including myself, into thinking it was a legendary Pokemon. But when it comes to world-altering lore, I don't think a single Rotom could cause much havoc. Sure, it can jump from appliance to appliance and cause a lot of mischief, but that's more of an annoying trait than a fearsome one in my opinion. I would say it is rare, so you can only get one in the Old Chateau and a few other unique places across regions, but without that world-altering lore, yet again, it just falls short of being a true legendary. Alright, let's jump into the Unova region, and I think 4 Pokemon here have potential. Let's start with Zoroark, who has the unique ability to transform itself into both Pokemon and people by creating illusions. And according to his dex entries, it can fool hundreds of people at once, which I would say is enough to check the first box. It has definitely been given special treatment in the games, since one appears on Victory Road guiding you to Inn's castle, and it even had its own events where if you transfer one of the shiny legendary beasts from the Johto remakes, you can find one in the wild disguised as a woman who attacks you, who then appears as one of the legendary beasts in battle, which is really cool and definitely checks the second box. So is it rare enough? And I would say just barely, since you can only get one of them in the original games and only appears in a few routes before Legends Arceus. So checking all 3 boxes, it has what it takes to be a legendary. Gothitelle is a Pokemon that I didn't expect to have potential, but its latest dex entry from Scarlet and Violet kind of changed everything. Because not only does this Pokemon have the ability to predict the future, but it can literally show its opponents how the universe ends in their dreams, which without a doubt would be world-altering, since it could cause a worldwide panic of an impending future based on its visions. But when it comes to special treatment and its rarity, it misses the mark. So even though it has a really scary lore, a very legendary lore, it shouldn't be legendary. Golurk has several impressive feats. For one, it has the ability to chase forms and fly at Mach speeds. It can also turn itself into a literal cannon that fires energy blasts. Yes, this is a real thing. It also apparently has a perpetual motion machine inside of its body that produces limitless energy. And it has a safety seal on its chest that prevents it from going berserk, which can apparently turn a whole village into a mountain of rubble. So yeah, it definitely has legendary aura to it. And the fact that it can turn into a cannon that fires energy blasts is special treatment, because you see it in Pokepark 2. So that checks 2 boxes. So it comes down to its rarity, and I would say it is fairly rare. It's going to be found in Dragonspire Tower and Victory Road in Unova. So we will promote it to a legendary Pokemon. Volcarona. If there was a poster trial for a Pokemon that should be legendary, this would be it. So let's see if it checks all the boxes of being a legendary. Does it have legendary lore? Yes, it is said that Volcarona's fire is so powerful that it can replace the sun, and that it was even feared by ancient people and was referred to as the rage of the sun and the deity of fire, like literally the god of fire. Has it been given special treatment? Yes, it literally has its own area in Relic Castle and is even placed by a legendary Pokemon in the Pokedex as if it was a legendary. And lastly, is it rare? Yes, very rare. You can only find one of them in Relic Castle and has a 1% chance of appearing in an SOS battle in Lush Jungle. So it should definitely be a legendary Pokemon. Boom! Alright, next up we have the Kalos region, where I think 4 Pokemon have potential. Let's start with Floette. Yes, I know, it sounds weird, it might be controversial, but hear me out. Let's put it through the test. Does it have world-altering feats? I would say yes, with AZ Floette in particular. Since it has strong ties to the ultimate weapon that ended the ancient war, and it has a dex entry that states that Eternal Flower Floette holds onto a flower with terrifying power. So, it checks that box. Does it have special treatment in the games? 100% it does. Since there was supposed to be an event Floette with the most powerful fairy-type move in the game, Light of Ruin. So, it checks that box too. And lastly, is it rare in the wild? Surprisingly, yes. In the lore of the Eternal Flower Floette, it is very rare, since the flower itself doesn't even bloom anymore in the Kalos region or anywhere found in the world, according to his dex entry. So I think Floette, when holding on to the Eternal Flower at least, is worthy of being a legendary Pokemon. A testament to how powerful whatever flower it's holding on to is. Maybe the flower should just be legendary and Floette just kind of hanging out with it. But regular Floettes, not so much, since they are pretty common in the wild with no world-altering lore at all. But the Eternal Flower Floette, yes, legendary. Aegislash not only has world-altering lore, but quite possibly history-altering lore, since it is known to track down people who are destined to be king and will manipulate them by controlling their actions with this sheath. There is even a dex entry that says that once upon a time, a king with an Aegislash reigned over the land, and once the Aegislash drained all of his life force, the kingdom fell with him. So it definitely checks that box. That is definitely world-altering. It also has special treatment in the games, since it has two attacking forms, its shield form and its blade form. And lastly, it is very rare in the wild, since it can only be found in max raid battles at the Watchtower Ruins and Sword and Shield. So this Pokemon deserves legendary status 100%. Malamar. This Pokemon is pretty insane as well, because it is known to have the most compelling hypnotic powers of any Pokemon ever, and can literally force others to do whatever it wants, according to his dex entries. And not that I'm counting the anime in this video, but there is an episode where a group of Malamar try to take over the world. They're canonically evil Pokemon, and after being stopped by Ash and his friends, they literally time travel into the future where they can try again. So basically the future of the Pokemon anime world is just doomed by these very intelligent, compelling, hypnotic powered Malamar. Yeah, so this Pokemon has the lore. When it comes to special treatment, it was recently given a Mega Evolution, and the whole marketing revolved around everyone being mind controlled by it, which was very fun and just shows how powerful Mega Malamar's hypnotic powers probably will be. And it is very rare in the wild, not being available anywhere else outside of the open world games. So I would say this Pokemon should be legendary. And we have Tyrantrum. According to its dex entries, it was known to be invincible in the ancient world. And 100 million years ago, it was considered the king of the land. And the fact that it was known to be invincible is just insane to me. And apparently just like Aerodactyl, full restoration of this Pokemon isn't possible. So if this Pokemon got a Mega Evolution where it reverted to its original power like Aerodactyl does, it would probably be unstoppable, rivaling probably Groudon and Kyogre, since they're ancient Pokemon as well. When it comes to special treatments, it being a fossil Pokemon is enough to check that box, and it is very rare in the wild, not being found anywhere before the open world games. So without a doubt, this Pokemon should be legendary, which makes Kalos the first region to have all potential Pokemon be promoted to the legendary status, which is kind of fitting because this region has the least amount of legendary Pokemon. So just imagine the Aura Trio with these Pokemon. It just makes sense. Now let's fly into the Alola region, and out of all the regular Pokemon, counting Ultra Beasts, I think only 3 of them have potential. Let's start with Oranguru. This Pokemon is said to be so intelligent that on rare occasions, it will match its wits with Slowking, and it ways its fan to command other Pokemon as if it was a trainer itself. The fact that its dex entry says that it matches wits with Slowking must mean it has insane intelligence like Slowking has, like award-winning world-altering intelligence, so I had to count it for the first criteria. It also has its own signature move, Instruct, which commands its opponent to use the last move, so that counts as a special treatment as well, in my opinion. And it is rare, since it can only be found in lush forests in the Alola region before the open world games. So, to my surprise, and probably your surprise again, this Pokemon fits the bill as a legendary Pokemon, the Monkey. Mimikyu's lore is tricky because apparently anyone who sees its true appearance will literally die. But I don't think Mimikyu has the motive to do that, because the whole point of its existence is to disguise itself as another Pokemon. That's what makes it Mimikyu. Without the disguise, it's probably a different Pokemon altogether. So I don't think it has any world-altering lore to it. Although it has been given special treatment with its own area, its own signature ability, and the fact that it's a gimmick Pokemon in itself, and it does seem pretty rare in the wild. But without the motive of revealing its true self, destroying the entire world, I guess, I don't think it has what it takes to be a legendary Pokemon. So, not legendary. Guzzlord. Out of all the Ultra Beasts, I think only Guzzlord has the potential to be a legendary Pokemon. Yeah, out of all of them, it's just Guzzlord. Because according to his dex entries, it literally gobbled entire mountains and swallowed buildings whole. And not only that, its native dimension is set in a post-apocalyptic world of Hau'oli City, and it looks like Guzzlord is the only creature left. So it is possible that it is the very reason why the city went to ruins, which I would say checks the first box for sure. When it comes to special treatments, it being an Ultra Beast is more than enough. And of course, it is very rare in the wild, as you can only get one in Resolution Cave or in its own dimension in the Ultra Ruin. So with that said, I think it deserves legendary status, and it gets a Dobbs seal of approval. Alright, next up are the Galar and Hisui regions. This is where we need to be pretty careful with the rarity of Pokemon, because the open world aspect of these games made a lot of Pokemon not very rare, because they're just everywhere now. So I will be looking at their encounter rates instead, and out of all the Pokemon, I think only 2 of them have the potential to be a legendary Pokemon. Let's start with Hatterene. According to its lore, it is known as the Forest Witch, and its messages say that forests with no living creatures inside of them are likely in the territory of Hatterene, basically meaning that it annihilated everything around it that it could find, which I would say definitely counts for the first criteria. When it comes to special treatments, it was given a Gigantamax form, where it's known as the Raging Goddess of the Galar region, so it all comes down to its rarity. And I think the best way to do this is to compare its rarity to other Pokemon in Sword and Shield that I have promoted to legendary status in this video. And looking at the encounter rates of Pokemon like Ninetales or Golurk, it seems to be pretty consistent with the encounter rate of Hatterene. So it checks all of the boxes to my surprise, and this fairy Pokemon here is a legendary. And then there's Ursaluna, who just like Floette has a special form that I will consider, the Blood Moon Ursaluna. It has definitely got special treatment, and it is very rare, because only one of them exists, it has its own signature move and ability, and is known as a myth in the land of Kitikami. But outside of that, I don't think it has any world-altering lore to it. I know Ursaluna itself is part of the 10 ancient Pokemon that was blessed by Arceus and Hisui, but I feel like they already got their own recognition by becoming noble Pokemon. So I don't think Ursaluna or even Blood Moon Ursaluna should be legendary. And lastly, we have the Paldea region. And out of all of the new Pokemon in the Paldea region, even the Paradox Pokemon, I think only one have potential to be a legendary. And that is Palafin. And it's basically because, you know, Paradox Pokemon have like no lore to them. They're just Paranormal Magazine things. But whatever, okay, Palafin. This Pokemon is known as the hero of the ocean. And it's quite literally the superhero of the Pokemon world. But as cool as its lore is and its whole design and gimmick, I don't think it has any world-altering feats. Yeah, it can swim at 50 knots and save drowning people in Pokemon, and easily lift a cruise ship with one fin, but these are abilities that other Pokemon have that I didn't consider in this video. It needs to have more lore that is world-altering. And even though it has gotten special treatment with its hero form, and it is extremely rare, only being found in 5-star Terra battles, I think it's just on the cusp of being a legendary Pokemon. Maybe in the future game we'll get more lore about it that will promote it to that legendary status. But as of now, I don't think it should be legendary. So out of all the 32 Pokemon that I thought had potential, out of all the 900 so regular Pokemon in the Pokemon world, only half of them were promoted to legendary status. And these are your new legendary Pokemon. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments.